I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I did mention it on a show a while ago, but I just want to do a quick recap. The Aarhus Convention it's an international treaty, so many nations sign up for this, and it's described as, well, it's binding, it's internationally binding, and what it does, it embodies certain principles that must be followed by those states that sign up to those principles. And it's called the Aarhus Convention. It's a very, it's an interesting convention. It's interesting to think that the government actually signed up to this convention, considering what's in it. It does seem to have a lot of very beneficial things in it. So, for example, it says that the public must be consulted in matters relating to the environment, in policy matters relating to the environment. They must be consulted. So, was anybody consulted on the environmental impact of this? Was anybody, because it is an environmental issue in the Aarhus Convention, in Article 2, it defines, as part of the definition of environment, it includes water. So it is an environmental issue. Was anybody consulted on this? No, absolutely not. So the idea here is that once this international treaty is signed up to, and this is the same for all international treaties, it then becomes the responsibility of the state to put it into their national law. And that's what the government did do. It's the Environmental Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2011, Section 8, okay? And it says that judicial notice must be taken of the Aarhus Convention. Okay, so the government have actually written this into Irish law. It's a part of Irish law. And I looked at this and I thought to myself that this could be used, I think, to put political pressure on the government, and at the very most, it could be used to put legal pressure on the government and Irish Water and halt them in their tracks for failure to comply with the principles of the Aarhus Convention, to which they must be compliant because they're signatories. They did not comply with them. We should be able to use this and halt Irish Water from proceeding until they go back into the consultation process, when they go back and ask the people, the ordinary individuals, to participate in the decisions of how the water is going to be managed. This is what the Aarhus Convention is about. So I put this information to a number of politicians, as I said, including Claire Daly, and Claire Daly, she got back to me first thing the next morning. Another politician who got back to me, a councillor, to his credit, was Michael O'Brien, and then Mick Wallace got back to me shortly after that, but none of the other ones have got back to me yet. But Claire Daly did get back to me the very next morning. I should say, first of all, that once I found out about this and I contacted the politicians, I also contacted the Minister for the Environment and Irish Water. I sent them both an email saying, simply, please outline the measures that the government and Irish Water has taken to ensure their compliance with the state's obligations under the Aarhus Convention. Please, that was point number one. Point number two, please provide full and specific details and results of all the environmental impact surveys conducted prior to commencing work. Now, I sent that to, as I said, the Minister for the Environment and to Irish Water for the attention of senior management. Obviously, I didn't get a reply from them, from neither the Minister or Irish Water. I got an automatic reply from the Minister, okay, but we won't include that. So they ignored the message. This is important, I think, to just point out while I'm on this point about the results of the environmental impact surveys. This is talking not just about the environment, but about our health. These pieces of equipment, look up Barry Trowers, and I've interviewed John Weigel before on the show, and listen to what they have to say about this sort of technology. If half of what they say is true, well then, at the very least, Irish Water should be conducting some sort of impact survey for the fact that they're going to be putting these frequency emitters on the main supply of the water that we're going to drink. There's also the idea that the meters can be tampered with outside your house. They've basically dug a hole into the concrete and made a way to access your water into your house. This creates further health concerns as well. So what the Aarhus Convention is supposed to do is supposed to empower us to protect. It's supposed to give the people in communities on the ground the power to decide how the environment is managed for the benefit of all, and not put so to avoid it getting into the situation we're in now, when you can paint it up and call it a semi-state body in your controlled media, but it's a private company managing a natural resource that, in my opinion, should be managed for the benefit of the community without the private company. And I'm sure a lot of people, it should be managed for the benefit of the people. Aside from the fact that there's all these other issues, the fact that the meters are hazardous, and it's tampering with a piece of our environment. And not just a piece of our environment, actually. It's an element that's essential to all of life on Earth. It's beyond just natural resource. So I sent this information off to those guys, and heard nothing back from Irish Water or the minister. But Claire Daly, just tonight, I checked my emails and I got a response back from her. So I thank Claire Daly for just raising this question in the Dáil. Question number 334 to the Minister for the Environment, Community and Local Government. To ask the Minister for the Environment, Community and Local Government the measures that were taken by the Government and Irish Water to ensure compliance with the Irish State's obligations under the Aarhus Convention. So it's essentially the same email that I sent, but she's raised it now. Claire Daly has raised it in the Dáil. And the answer that came back, I'm going to read through it all because it also explains the Aarhus Convention in a little bit more detail. But I want to just bear in mind the difference between the question that was asked, which is, please tell us how you ensured the obligations were fulfilled, and the answer that this politician has given. It's the same old story. It's the same old waffle that we get time and time again. The same old. They don't answer the question, but it's what he doesn't say that's just as significant. Okay. The minister replies saying that the Aarhus Convention lays down a set of basic rules to promote citizens' involvement in environmental matters and to improve enforcement of environmental law. The rules are broken down into 3 pillars. 1. Access to information on the environment, which allows members of the public access to a wide range of information on the environment, including information on the state of the environment, associated policies and measures, and on the state of human health and safety, where this can be affected by the state of the environment. 2. Public participation. Public participation requires that parties to the convention, the state, facilitate public participation in decisions about the environment. Public authorities must have mechanisms in place to enable the public affected and environmental NGOs to comment on, for example, proposals for projects affecting the environment or plans and programs relating to the environment. And 3, access to justice, which provides that the public have access to independent review procedures that are timely, equitable, and not prohibitively expensive to challenge decisions relating to the environment. Okay, I don't think any of these things have really been fulfilled, but this is the minister telling us, this is his answer. Prior to formal ratification of the convention, Ireland was required to implement each provision in national law, and there are over 60 pieces of legislation which have been used to implement the Aarhus Convention. As with all statutory bodies, Irish Water, this is the key, this is the important bit. As with all statutory bodies, Irish Water is required to comply with all requisite legislation pertaining to the implementation of the Aarhus Convention. Okay, so he's basically told us the answer that we need here. In my opinion, he's saying that yes, these are the obligations that the state are bound by. Irish Water is a statutory body, so it applies to them, and they, Irish Water, are required to comply with all requisite legislation pertaining to the implementation of the Aarhus Convention. Basically, Irish Water is bound to the principles and the legislation of the Aarhus Convention. Then the minister goes on to finally say, Irish Water has established a dedicated team to deal with representations and queries from public representatives. They may be contacted via email. or by telephone on 1890s 278 278. So he's kind of didn't answer the question, how did you comply with these obligations? But what he has said is that the obligations do exist and they do apply to Irish water. So we need to ask ourselves, access to information. Have you tried? This means that the environmental impact reports that I've asked Irish Water for, they're bound to give those to me. They're bound to give them to every member of the public and any member of the public who asks for them by this Aarhus Convention. The important point for me, though, I think, is the public participation. At what point nobody was asked about this, nobody was consulted about this in a proper sort of convention way where the people's opinions could be voiced and that we would actually have a say in how the water could be managed. We accept that water needs to be conserved. We accept that there's leaks and they need to be fixed. But let's discuss how we're going to do that before you waste all of the country's money and privatise a resource that could be nationalised. Irish water could be nationalised and not semi-state, fully nationalised. It's just an idea. There's plenty of ideas, and I'm sure there's much better ideas than anything I could come up with already out there in the community. And the Aarhus Convention is supposed to have given you the chance to use that voice in your community, and you didn't get it. And the final one is access to justice. You must have access to justice under this Aarhus Convention. Independent review procedures. They must be timely, equitable, and they mustn't cost you an arm and a leg to do it. You must be able to challenge these decisions. Now, this information, I'm just sort of coming, I'm piecing it together myself as it comes to light. But I'm putting it out there, and I think that, people, if this is catching your interest, look into it, research it, see what you can do to make this work for you. Come up with ideas for how this Aarhus Convention can be used to put political pressure on the government and legal pressure on Irish water. This is their system. This is their construct. They created these laws. They signed up to them. So surely they must be bound to what they have agreed to. Unlike the common man on the street who's not bound to Irish water because they haven't agreed to it. This is an agreement that they made. They must be bound to it. They must be held to account to their own rules. Now, they're not going to enforce them on themselves. It requires this law, as far as I can gather, this Aarhus Convention was designed to empower the public. So now that this information is out there, I'm hoping that it does empower the public and that you do hold the government to account on their own commitments under the Aarhus Convention and try and stop this monster that is Irish water in its tracks. I'm going to take a short break there now on that point, and when I come back I will hopefully be joined by Jeff Rudd, who is one of the admins over on the Fight the Water Tax Lawfully page.
Tir na Sair.